Luster Cream Shampoo for soft, glamorous, caressable hair, and Colgate Dental Cream to clean your breath while you clean your teeth and help stop tooth decay, bring you Our Miss Brooks, starring Eve Arden. And now another comedy episode of Our Miss Brooks, written and directed by Al Lewis. Many teachers returning from their vacations, well tanned and rested, are looking forward to resuming their duties tomorrow morning. But our Miss Brooks, who spent most of her vacation time teaching English at Madison High Summer School, doesn't share their enthusiasm for getting back into harness.
No, I've been wearing the thing so long, I'm saddle sore. Of course, when summer school ended in August, I did make up my mind to get a complete change of scenery. So I took the money I received, added it to my savings from the regular school term, and by careful budgeting, was able to spend 3 glorious weeks in the furnished room I rent all year round. But last Thursday morning at breakfast, my landlady, Mrs. Davis, and I were discussing my plans for a Friday picnic.
But why must the picnic be tomorrow, Connie? Why not Saturday or Sunday?
Because, Mrs. Davis, tomorrow is the last weekday I'll have off until Thanksgiving. And if our beloved principal could get away with it, he'd change that to a Sunday.
Oh, Mr. Conklin isn't that bad, Connie. He likes a good time as well as the next fellow.
He likes a good time better than the next fellow. But if the next fellow happens to be a teacher, Mr. Conklin will stop having a good time to give the teacher who's having a good time a bad time. A song by Rudy Valley.
Oh. Is Mr. Boynton taking you to the picnic, Connie?
Yes, Mrs. Davis. I accepted my invitation on the phone last night. It'll be good to see Madison's bashful biologist again. He just got back from a 3-week vacation, you know.
Who all is going on this picnic, Connie?
Harriet Conklin and Walter Denton all. It was really Walter's idea. The poor kid can't spend any time with Harriet without Mr. Conklin constantly barking at him.
Mr. Conklin isn't very fond of Walter, is he?
Oh, it's not that Mr. Conklin isn't fond of Walter. He hates him. But it ought to be a nice outing for all of us. Oh, that's the door, isn't it?
No, that's the bell. The door makes more of a creaking sound.
Well, I'll answer it. I need the exercise.
If you want me, I'll be in the backyard, Connie. I've got to prune the big tree.
Why, it's Mr. Boynton. Come in.
Good morning, Miss Brooks. I brought this basket over for the picnic tomorrow. Do you think it's big enough for us?
I don't know, but it might be fun trying it on. Oh, you mean for sandwiches? Well, it seems sort of small, but the basket can wait. I want to know all about your vacation. Where you went, what you did.
Well, I just went up to Eagle Springs, had a beautiful cabin, did a little fishing, played some golf and tennis. I did a little rowing, too, and at night they had a campfire and we broiled or barbecued steaks. And after that, there was usually a movie or some entertainment at the casino. Well, that's all there was to it.
You should have asked for your money back. Did you do any dancing at the casino, Mr. Boynton?
Dancing? Yes, I did dance a little.
With whom?
Oh. I didn't dance with anyone, just by myself. You know, I'd get off in a... I'd get off in a dark corner of the casino and sort of waltz around in time to the music.
It's nice that way. If you get bored, you can always cut in on yourself. Tell me, how was your trip back to town?
Oh, very pleasant, although the train was quite crowded. Guess who came into town on the same train with me?
Who?
I'll take a guess.
Edgar Bergen and Charlie McCarthy.
No.
Charlie McCarthy alone.
No, Miss Brooks. No, it was Wallace T. Hewitt.
It was?
Yes, ma'am.
Wallace T. Hewitt himself?
That's right.
Gosh. Who's Wallace T. Hewitt?
I'm surprised at you, Miss Brooks. I thought every teacher knew the chairman of the State Board of Education.
Oh, it was that Wallace T. Hewitt. Did you ask him for a raise, Mr. Boynton?
Oh, I know you're joking, Miss Brooks. I didn't speak to Mr. Hewitt at all. As soon as we landed in the depot, he was surrounded by reporters. Well, he's a power in educational circles in this state. It was all I could do to get a glimpse of him.
What does he look like?
Oh, he's quite short, almost completely bald, with a little wispy mustache and small beady eyes behind thick glasses.
Good-looking boy.
And although he's very stout, he moves along rather briskly, like a penguin. I wonder what he's doing in town.
Maybe he's shopping around for a new tuxedo. But let's not talk about the Board of Education, Mr. Boynton. Time enough for that when school opens next Monday.
You're right, Miss Brooks. You haven't had a real vacation this summer. This picnic tomorrow ought to be...
Oh, it's the phone. Excuse me, Mr. Boynton. Hello?
Hello, Miss Brooks. This is Mr. Conklin.
Oh, how are you, Mr.
You'll have
Conklin?
to dispense with the amenities, Miss Brooks. I'm calling to inform you that Madison High School will open tomorrow morning at the usual time.
Tomorrow? But school doesn't start till Monday.
I said, Miss Brooks, that our school opens tomorrow.
But, Mr. Conklin, Monday is September 12th. All schools open on the 12th.
I'm beginning to feel as if I were talking into a thermos bottle. Miss Brooks, just a short time ago, I received a telephone call from Mr. Wallace T. Hewitt, chairman of the State Board of Education. Although I've never met Mr. Hewitt, he notified me of his intention to visit my office in the morning. Naturally, I expect a 100% turnout from faculty and student body alike to help me welcome this most distinguished visitor.
But, Mr. Conklin, we've got a picnic planned for tomorrow. In a few minutes, Walter Denton's going to take me shopping.
Walter Denton? Please, Miss Brooks. I've asked you before, and I beseech you again. Don't mention that name so soon after breakfast. What my daughter sees in that lame-brained dunce is more than I can... but there's no time for that now. Until tomorrow morning, Miss Brooks, it's au revoir.
Au revoir to you, Mr. Conklin. Well, there goes our picnic, Mr. Boynton.
Where?
Down the drain, I'm afraid. Your precious Mr. Hewitt has decided to honor our fair school with a visit tomorrow morning. So Mr. Conklin's ordered us all back to greet him.
Tomorrow? But school doesn't open officially until Monday.
Believe me, Mr. Boynton, I delivered that message with all the feeling my parched little throat could muster. But the answer's the same. It's the Bastille at dawn. Coming. Well, it can't be Walter Denton.
Why not? Hiya, Miss Brooks. I just saw Mr. Boynton on the corner.
I know, he just left. Walter, I've got some sterling news for you.
Your news will have to wait, Miss Brooks. I've got the bulletin of all time.
Oh, you have?
Sure. Listen to this. You know how Mr. Conklin hates me.
Well, I wouldn't call him a fan, Walter.
Yeah, I know. But even so, when he hears about anybody having a good time, even me, he sometimes tries to muscle in. So, I thought up a way to keep him from ruining our picnic tomorrow if he decides to horn in at the last minute.
But, Walter, about tomorrow...
Please, Miss Brooks, let me finish. About an hour ago, I called old Marblehead on the phone, Mr. Conklin. And I put a handkerchief over the mouthpiece and disguised my voice. Oh, you should have been there, Miss Brooks. It was a riot.
What did you say, Walter?
I said, get a load of this, Miss Brooks. I said, hello, Conklin. And he said, yes, this is Osgood Conklin. Who is this? And then I said, this will kill you, Miss Brooks.
Well, let's not make it such a slow death. Who did you say it was?
I said,
Conklin, this is Wallace T. Hewitt.
Wallace T. Oh, no.
Yeah. And then I said, I'm inspecting some of the schools in this area, and I'll expect to see you in your office at 9 o'clock tomorrow morning. And then while he was falling all over himself to be nice to me, I hung up. Is that a rib or is that a rib?
That, Walter, is the greatest rib that's been pulled since Adam was a bachelor.
Starring Eve Arden will continue in just a moment, but first here is Vern Smith. Now, dental science reveals a startling discovery in the fight against tooth decay. Proof that always using Colgate dental cream right after eating help stop tooth decay before it starts. Continuous research, hundreds of case histories, makes this the most important news in dental history. Eminent dental authorities supervised hundreds of college men and women for over a year. One group always brushed their teeth with Colgates right after eating. The other followed their usual dental care. And here are the amazing results. The group using Colgate dental cream as directed showed a startling reduction in average number of cavities, far less tooth decay. The other group developed new cavities at a much higher rate. No other dentifrice offers proof of these results. And Colgate contains all the necessary ingredients, including an exclusive patented ingredient for effective daily dental care. No risk of irritation to tissues and gums. And no change in flavor, foam, or cleansing action. As always, Colgate cleans your breath while it cleans your teeth. The Colgate now at your dealers is the same formula used in the test. Always use Colgate dental cream right after eating to help prevent new cavities, help stop tooth decay before it starts.
Well, I spent most of Thursday night trying to figure how to keep Walter Denton from being expelled and still go on our picnic Friday, instead of waiting around school for a Mr. Hewitt who would never arrive. About 4 a.m, an idea was born, and a thoroughbred infant it was, out of desperation by panic. A half hour before school was due to convene, found me heading for Marty's Malt Shop, a student hangout across the street from Madison. As I entered, I noticed Stretch Snodgrass, known to his chums as Athlete's Foot of the Brain, seated at a table by himself. Good morning, Stretch. Am I intruding?
Oh, no, Miss Brooks. You don't look no different to me than you always do.
Thank you, I think. Mind if I sit down and have a cup of coffee?
Not at all. Here, I'll take this off the seat for you. It's my football.
Yes, I know. That's the only thing you've passed all year. But, Stretch, there's something you've just got to understand.
Yeah, there must be something.
Now I'm not so sure. But it seems that a very dear mutual friend of ours engineered a rather foolish prank yesterday. And if the facts ever leak out, he'll be expelled from Madison. You and I, Stretch, hold his scholastic future in our hands. Now, how good are you at keeping a secret?
Oh, I'm very good, Miss Brooks. Like yesterday when my pal Walter Dent imitated Mr. Hewitt's voice on the phone and told old Marblehead that... Oh, Mr. Conklin, he better hightail it over to school today. After Walter done it, he made me promise to keep it a secret. So that's why I won't tell nobody. Not a word of it.
Not a word of what, Stretch?
Of how Walter told... Oh, no, you don't. You can't trick me into spilling anything. You couldn't beat it out of me with a rubber hose.
Stout fella. But, Stretch, the entire faculty and student body have to be in school this morning only because Walter imitated Mr. Hewitt's voice on the phone and told old Marblehead, Mr. Conklin, to hightail it over to school today.
Gosh, how did you know that, Miss Brooks?
There must have been a leak. But I've got an idea that can get us all out of here. Now, will you help me, Stretch?
Sure, Miss Brooks. What can I do?
Well, you can see to it that Mr. Hewitt arrives nice and early so we can all leave the same way.
But I don't know Mr. Hewitt.
And Mr. Conklin doesn't either. Now, listen closely, Stretch. You know the little park right across from the school library?
Library?
Where all the books are kept.
Books?
It's on the way to the football field.
Oh, that little park. Sure, I know where that is. There's always a bunch of old Delaricks sitting around there.
Old what?
Delaricks, you know, bums, sort of.
Oh, now we're getting somewhere. Stretch, I want you to get one of those men and bring him to me. But be sure you get a fat one with glasses who has a little mustache. Mr. Conklin might have seen a picture of Mr. Hewitt somewhere.
Well, that shouldn't be too tough. A lot of them look like that. But, Miss Brooks, supposing he don't want to come.
He's got to come. Tell him he'll be helping a human being in distress. Tell him anything, but bring him directly to me.
Well, I don't get him, Miss Brooks. Why should
Quiet, Stretch. Harriet Conklin's coming over. Now, whatever you do, don't mention a word of this.
Good morning, Miss Brooke.
Well, shut Stretch's mouth if it isn't Harriet Conklin. How are you, Harriet?
Oh, I feel wonderful, Miss Brooks. Hiya, Stretch. What do you know?
You couldn't beat it out of me with a rubber hose.
What's wrong with Stretch, Miss Brooks?
He ain't talking. Now, Stretch, You'd better go over to the park and do what I told you. I'll explain to Harriet and get her oath of allegiance on our way over to school.
All right, Miss Brooks.
Remember now, get a small, chubby one with glasses.
I'll remember. See you later, Harriet.
What's this all about, Miss Brooks? What did you send Stretch after?
A penguin, Harriet.
With glasses?
Why not? A penguin's entitled to see where he's going, isn't he?
I don't understand this. Boy, of all the people in the park, why did you have to pick on me?
Because you were so nice and round.
Yeah.
I mean, like I told you, mister, it's a matter of helping out a human being. Besides, you wasn't doing nothing in the park.
I wasn't doing nothing. Who teaches you English, boy?
Miss Brooks. Well, there she is waiting on the steps. I'll introduce her to you in a minute. Well, what's your name?
My name is Hewitt. Wallace T. Hewitt, chairman of the State Board of Education.
Excuse me a minute.
Where are you going?
I better go back to the park and get another one.
Nonsense. You've aroused my curiosity now, and I'm going to see this thing through.
Hello, Stretch.
Miss Brooks, this is Mr. Hewitt.
Oh, it certainly is. Oh, he's perfect, Stretch.
Yeah. Perfect.
But, Miss Brooks, this really is Mr. Hewitt.
I'll say, from the top of his shiny skull to the tips of his waddly little toes.
Now, see here, young woman. I demand to know what this is all about. First, I'm sitting in the park reading,
The
and...
want ads can wait, Chubby. I've got a job for you.
Ah, for me?
It'll only take a few minutes, and I'll see that you get $1 for your trouble.
$1?
Kid is really anxious. We could probably have swung it for a quarter. Now, listen carefully, Hewitt. I'll be calling you by that name from here in, so we might as well get used to it. All you've got to do is convince Mr. Conklin, our principal, that you're Mr. Hewitt, chairman of the State Board of Education.
I see. Do you think my card might help to convince him? I've got some in my wallet here. There we are. The cards are right in this little compartment. See where my name is printed in gold letters?
Wallace T. Hewitt. Quick, Stretch, call a cop. This bum has just murdered Mr. Hewitt.
Murder! Now, look here, young woman. This has gone far enough. Fortunately, I'm just proud enough of my position to carry with me a newspaper photo which appeared last month. Here, look at it.
Wallace T. Hewitt, chairman of the State Board of Education. Stretch, it's him.
Sure, it's him.
Of course it's him. And me.
Oh, why, Mr. Hewitt, we knew it was you all the time.
Well, you did, huh? But you said I waddled and that I murdered myself.
Well, that was all part of the joke, Mr. Hewitt. You see, one of our teachers came back on the same train with you from Eagle Springs. You didn't see him, of course, but he couldn't help observing what a jovial, good-natured, jolly sort of person you are.
Well, I do have quite a good sense of humor about some things. But another explanation seems in order, Miss Brooks. Why are so many students roaming about the campus? School doesn't start until next Monday.
Well, that's because our principal, Mr. Conklin, wanted us to get a head start.
Really? Well, that is unusual. I'd like to meet Mr. Conklin while I'm here.
Oh, no, you wouldn't. He's not in on the rib.
Huh?
I mean, that is, with such a distinguished visitor, I'd like to tell him you're here first. You know, give him a chance to run a comb through his tie and fix the knot in his hair.
But, my dear Miss Brooks...
Oh, please, Mr. Hewitt, take a little stroll around the grounds, and I'll meet you at Mr. Conklin's office in a few minutes.
Well, if it'll make you feel more comfortable to announce me. But how will I find Mr. Conklin's office?
You can't miss it. When you come back to the main building, you'll see a door with a gray-haired English teacher in a straitjacket in front of it. Just push me aside and walk right in.
Daddy told me he'd be right over here giving the athletic field a last-minute check. Have you seen him, Walter?
No, Harriet, but he might be in the gym. Gosh, I'm nervous as a kitten. If your dad finds out we're hiring a hobo to impersonate Mr. Hewitt, we'll be boiled in oil.
Oh, he won't find out. We'll just have to be real cagey about it. I wonder where Daddy could be.
I'm right here behind the handball court, my dear.
Mr. Conklin!
So I'm to be duped, am I? By an impersonator, eh? A hobo, eh?
But, Miss I sitting behind Mr. Conklin's desk?
Because, Mr. Boynton, with the real Mr. Hewitt on our hands, we've got to have a fake Mr. Conklin. And outside of Mr. Conklin, you're the best fake I could find.
But he might come back to his office.
Well, we've just got to take that chance. If Mr. Hewitt talks to Mr. Conklin and the truth about that phone call comes out, Walter Denton will be expelled.
Oh, gee, I wouldn't want that to happen.
Well, then we've got to see this thing through. Mr. Hewitt should be finishing his tour of the... Come in.
Well, Miss Brooks, I'm back.
Good. Mr. Conklin here has just been perishing to meet you. Mr. Conklin, may I present Mr. Hewitt?
How do you do, sir?
So you're Mr. Conklin. Tell me, how long have you been the principal of Madison High School?
Not long at all.
I imagined as much. You're a very young man to be holding this high office, Mr. Conklin. And I might add, a very handsome young man.
Isn't he a doll? and he's so industrious, Mr. Hewitt. You won't catch many principals jumping the gun like this, coming to school ahead of time.
That's very true, Miss Brooks. I'll certainly mention this in my report to the board. I'm returning to the state capitol in a couple of hours, you know.
Oh, really? Then we wouldn't want you to miss your train, sir. Now that we've met you, maybe we ought to let you get out.
But fast. I'll show you the shortcut to the bus line if you'll just follow me out this door. And we'll go...
Going somewhere, Miss Brooks?
Not me. I'm rooted to the spot.
Good. And this, I presume, is Mr. Hewitt?
That's right.
Mr. Wallace T. Hewitt?
Yes.
Chairman of the State Board of Education?
That is correct.
Get out of this office, you hobo! Hobo! Pack up your spindle and hit the road!
This has gone far enough. Mr. Conklin, did you hear what I just heard?
Of course I heard.
Miss Brooks, what's the meaning of this?
Something wrong, Mr. Hewitt?
Wrong? This hobo just called me a hobo. Do I have to show everyone in town my picture in the paper to prove I'm not a vagrant? Here, take a look at this, you oaf.
Wallace T. Hewitt, Chairman of the State.
Gad. It's you. Yes, it's me. And I'm going to see that the board hears of this outrageous affair. Now, what's your name?
My name?
Yes, your name.
My name is Denton, Walter Denton.
I presume you're a member of the Madison High faculty?
Faculty? No, sir. I'm a student here.
Student? You?
GI Bill of Rights. He's making up some credits so he can get into grade school.
Hi, Miss Brooks. The door was open, so I just... Oh, Mr. Conklin.
Yes?
This is Mr. Hewitt, Mr. Wallace T. Hewitt.
It's no use. The jig's up, Miss Brooks. Mr. Conklin knows he's just a hobo.
Again, hobo. What is your name, young man?
Me?
That's my pal, Mr. Hewitt, one of my dearest buddies here at school. Stretch Snodgrass. Shake hands with Mr. Hewitt, Stretch.
Stretch.
Somebody mention my name?
Not yet, but we will in a minute. Mr. Hewitt, this is the boy who asked you to join us while you were sitting in the park. Meet Philip Boynton.
Yeah, I don't think I'm quite following the goings-on here today, but I've just got to make that train. Let me tell you one thing, though, Mr. Conklin.
Yes?
Will you please stop butting in, Denton?
Sorry, Mr. Hewitt.
They've been with the Glee Club too long.
I just want you to know that in spite of my sense of humor, I consider this incident a grievous insult to a man in my position, and I'm going to take action immediately.
But, Mr. Hewitt, what action are you going to take?
I'm going to see to it that a certain Walter Denton is expelled from this school.
Expelled?
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 Boy, I'm glad I'm not in their shoes.
Young woman, as the instigator of this degrading practical joke, you shall be as severely penalized as the state board permits, and I shall take great pleasure in recommending your immediate suspension without pay. Now, Miss Brooks, what do you say to that? Well, Miss Brooks?
Miss Brooks? Who's Miss Brooks?
What? Well, if you're not Miss Brooks, then who are you?
Mr. Hewitt, shake hands with Sam, the janitor.
Miss Brooks returns in just a moment, but first...
Dream girl, beautiful luster cream girl.
Tonight, yes, tonight, show him how much lovelier your hair can look after a Luster Cream shampoo. Luster Cream, world's finest shampoo. No other shampoo in the world gives Kay Daumit's magic blend of secret ingredients plus gentle lanolin. Not a soap, not a liquid. Luster Cream shampoo leaves hair 3 ways lovelier. Fragrantly clean, free of loose dandruff, glistening with sheen, soft, manageable. Even in hardest water, Luster Cream lathers instantly. No special rinse needed after a Luster Cream shampoo. So gentle, Luster Cream is wonderful even for children's hair. Tonight, yes, tonight, try Luster Cream shampoo.
Dream girl, beautiful luster cream girl. You owe your crowning glory to a luster cream shampoo.
And now, once again, here is our Miss Brooks.
Well, what started out as a pretty dangerous practical joke soon proved to be nothing more than a clean-cut, wholesome shambles. But by mass pleading and a pint of quickly generated tears, we finally prevailed upon Mr. Hewitt to suspend sentence, and at long last we were off on our picnic. In less than an hour, Mr. Boynton had driven us about 30 miles from town.
Well, it took us a little while, but we can still have some fun.
Sure we can. It's a beautiful day, and the ride's just swell. Don't you think so, Miss Brooks?
I certainly do, Walter. Your car drives beautifully, Mr. Boynton. So much smoother than mine.
Oh, thanks, Miss Brooks.
But you know something? I can't help wishing we had taken my car instead.
Why, Miss Brooks?
Because that's where I left the picnic basket.
Next week, tune into another Our Miss Brooks show brought to you by Luster Cream Shampoo for soft, glamorous, caressable hair and Colgate Dental Cream to clean your breath while you clean your teeth and help stop tooth decay. Our Miss Brooks, starring Eve Arden, is produced by Larry Burns, written and directed by Al Lewis, with music by Wilbur Hatch.
Doctors prove you too may have a lovelier complexion in 14 days. Yes, 36 leading skin specialists proved in tests on 1,285 different women that a new method of cleansing with palm olive soap using nothing but palm olive brought new complexion beauty to 2 women out of 3. Just wash your face 3 times daily with palm olive soap. Each time for 60 seconds, massaging palm olive's beauty lather onto your skin. Then rinse. So start your palm olive facials today. See what palm olive soap can do for your complexion in just 14 days.
Here is an urgent message from the National Foundation for Infantile Paralysis. March of Dimes funds for the care of polio victims will be used up by September 30th, 19 days from now. It will take over $14 million to continue this care. So don't abandon America's children. Send your dimes and dollars to polio, care of your local post office now. For mystery liberally sprinkled with laughs, listen to Mr. and Mrs. North, the exciting, fun-packed adventures of an amateur detective and his beautiful wife. Tune in Tuesday evening over most of these same stations. And be with us again next week at this same time for another comedy episode of Our Miss Brooks. Bob Lamont speaking. This is CBS, the Columbia Broadcasting System.
Luster Cream Shampoo for soft, glamorous, caressable hair, and Colgate Dental Cream to clean your breath while you clean your teeth and help stop tooth decay bring you Our Miss Brooks, starring Eve Arden, written by Al Lewis. nation's schools threw open their doors last Monday, and in spite of a difficult first week, our Miss Brooks, who teaches English at Madison High School, was determined not to let the rigors of the impending semester dim her enthusiasm for her chosen career. Well, she was talking about it early Friday morning in the room she rents from Mrs. Davis.
Sure, it's difficult being a teacher, but lots of other occupations are difficult, too. Besides, maybe Mr. Conklin, our principal, will recommend that I be made head of the English department. That carries a bigger salary with it, and who knows, from there I might become an assistant principal, maybe even a principal. Then there's always Mr. Boynton. He's been pretty shy for a biology teacher, but I'm sure he'll warm up a little this term. I'll bet he'll just insist on spending more and more time with me on weekends as well as school days. Why, this year he might even propose. Okay. Darned alarm clock. I wish you'd waited for another minute. I was about to discover oil in my inkwell.
Connie. Oh, Connie, it's time to get up.
Oh, I am up, Mrs. Davis. Come on in.
I was afraid you wouldn't hear your alarm, Connie. Now I'll get breakfast started, and, before I forget, Mr. Conklin called while you were still asleep. He said to tell you to stop at his office before you go to your first class.
That's what we all need, something to look forward to. It's probably about his new cheerleading idea.
Cheerleading idea?
Yes, he doesn't think there's enough enthusiasm for our football team. Tomorrow's the first game, and he wants the team to feel that we're all behind them.
I see. How did the Madison team wind up last year, Connie?
They had an undefeated season, Mrs. Davis.
They did?
That's right. They didn't defeat a single team. That's why Mr. Conklin's got this wild scheme to make a member of the faculty act as cheerleader.
A member of the faculty leading cheers?
Exactly. He doesn't feel that the student yell leaders are generating enough steam.
But whom do you think he'll select for the job, Connie?
Well, it's a lot of hard work with no extra pay. I seem like a natural for it.
Oh, but Connie, why should Mr. Conklin pick you for a job like that?
Because Mr. Conklin is one of my most ardent boosters. He's right behind me every minute. It gives me a great sense of security to know that our beloved principal is one of my staunchest supporters.
Really?
Yes, it's like standing on a nice, firm gallows. But after what he's already done to me, leading a few cheers will be easy.
He's done something else?
Yes, he's still on his big anti-fraternization kick. So he moved me from room 148, right next to Mr. Boynton's biology lab, way down to room 102. I hardly get to see him at all now.
But can't you just stroll casually down to his room between classes?
There isn't much time between classes, Mrs. Davis. How casual can you be with spiked shoes and a kneeling start?
Poor Connie. If it isn't one thing, it's another. But I still can't conceive of you as a cheerleader in a football stadium.
I assure you, Mr. Conklin can. I wouldn't be surprised if he expected me to be a drum majorette as well. Why, this very minute he's probably chuckling into his coffee at the thought of me throwing a big brass baton up in the air and catching it without a bounce on the top of my head.
Now, this coffee's very good, Harriet. Yeah, I can just see her now, catching that big stick right on top of her head.
Pardon me, Daddy, but I don't quite follow you.
Oh, it's Miss Brooks, Harriet. I'm thinking of making her faculty cheerleader for the football season.
Why, that's a wonderful idea, Daddy. The kids are crazy about Miss Brooks.
Yes, the kids are crazy. But, Harriet, do you think she'll accept her new assignment as yell leader cheerfully?
Well, I don't know why not. If it's good enough for a principal, it ought to be all right for a teacher.
What do you mean, if it's good enough for a principal?
Well, the story's right here in the morning paper, Daddy. Jason Brill, principal of Clay City High School, elected honorary cheerleader.
But it was my idea to get a faculty cheerleader. I told Brill about it last week when we... Let's see that paper. Why, they've got his picture in here. Jason Brill thanking the student body of Clay City High. Well, of all the hammy oafs. Not only does he steal my idea, but he appoints himself to grab all the publicity.
But he didn't appoint himself, Daddy. He was elected by the students.
Oh, he was elected by the students.
Well, then I guess I can be elected by the students as well.
You? A cheerleader?
Well, what's so funny about it? I was a drum major in college. I'll call a special assembly right after lunch, and we'll vote for a faculty cheerleader.
Well, gosh, Daddy, I don't like to undermine your ego, but if it's an elective position, Miss Brooks will probably win it by a mile.
Oh, she will. You forget, young lady, that your father is an old hand at politics. Why, I was offered a political position before I was even a teacher in this town.
Yes, Daddy.
Of course, I had a good reason for not accepting.
I know. The back of your car wasn't big enough to hold all the dogs you'd have to collect.
That's not the position. Wish your mother would stop blabbing that story around. Now, clear off the dishes and let's get to school.
Okay, Daddy. Maybe I'll get a chance to rub noses with my dream pie before school starts. He's driving Miss Brooks down this morning.
Your dream pie?
Walter Denton.
Oh. Please, Harriet. Not at the breakfast table.
And so, Miss Brooks, although I've often kidded about the subject, his actions this week forced me reluctantly to one conclusion.
What's that, Walter?
Mr. Conklin finds me acutely distasteful. That's why he put me, my best pal, Stretch Snodgrass, and my best girl, Harriet Conklin, all in different classes. I just don't see how a man can be so cruel to his own flesh and blood.
Harriet?
Certainly. Why, do you realize what he's denying that poor girl? Me.
She'll just have to be brave, I guess.
And look what he did to you. Moved you all the way down to room 102. Now, that's about as far away as you can get from Mr. Boynton's lab. Why, it must be 200 yards.
204 and 9 inches. But maybe absence will make the heart grow fonder. He did ask me out last Wednesday night.
Mr. Boynton asked you for a date in the middle of the week?
He certainly did. Invited me to a drive-in movie in his neighborhood.
Well, that sounds cozy.
It could have been cozier. He felt it would keep him up too late if he drove me home, so he suggested that I bring my car along, too.
Well, gee, once you got into the place, you snuggled up real close, didn't you?
It's a little difficult, Walter, to snuggle up to somebody with a new Hudson in between. Well, but let's get back to your problem, Walter. I'm sorry to hear you're not happy in your present classes.
I'm miserable, Miss Brooks. You see, it isn't just being separated from Harriet that hurts. It's Stretch Snodgrass, too. You know how close Stretch and I are. After all, you taught the both of us English last term.
You were both in my class last term, if that's what you mean. Your friend Stretch is the only pupil I've ever met who garnered out of a possible 100% a final mark of 9. Even your sparkling 27 looked good by comparison.
Well, he may not be overburdened with brains, but he's got a great sense of loyalty, Miss Brooks. Gosh, if we're kept apart all term, it'll break Stretch's heart. And mine, too. Maybe you can get us transferred back to your class. Please, Miss Brooks, please. You gotta help us. Tell me you'll help us.
Now, take it easy, Walter. You can rest assured I'll do everything in my power to arrange a transfer for you.
Gee, thanks, Miss Brooks.
After all, I want you, as well as Stretch, to look back upon your career at Madison High School as the happiest 12 years of your life.
Our Miss Brooks, starring Eve Arden, will continue in just a moment. But first, here is Vern Smith. Now, dental science reveals a startling discovery in the fight against tooth decay. Proof that always using Colgate dental cream right after eating helps stop tooth decay before it starts. Continuous research, hundreds of case histories, makes this the most important news in dental history. Eminent dental authorities supervised hundreds of college men and women for over a year. One group always brushed their teeth with Colgates right after eating. The other followed their usual dental care. And here are the amazing results.
The group using Colgate Dental Cream as directed showed a startling reduction in average number of cavities, far less tooth decay. The other group developed new cavities at a much higher rate. No other dentifrice offers proof of these results. And Colgate contains all the necessary ingredients, including an exclusive patented ingredient for effective daily dental care. No risk of irritation to tissues and gums. And no change in flavor, foam, or cleansing action. As always, Colgate cleans your breath while it cleans your teeth. The Colgate now at your dealers is the same formula used in the test. Always use Colgate Dental Cream right after eating to help prevent new cavities, help stop tooth decay before it starts.
Well, I arrived in school before Mr. Conklin did, and having a little time to kill, I sauntered toward Mr. Boynton's biology laboratory.
Miss Brooks.
Oh, morning, Mr. Boynton. Just happened to be in the neighborhood, so I thought I'd drop in.
Well, sit down, catch your breath.
Yeah, thanks.
I was just feeding my pet frog. You remember McDougal.
Oh, of course. Hi, Matt.
We haven't seen very much of you since Mr. Conklin changed your room.
I know. Do you miss me? One down and one to go. How about you, Mr. Boynton? Do you miss me?
Well, gosh,
If you're bashful, just say,
Wait, it's only natural, I suppose, for all living creatures who form a certain habit pattern to be temporarily thrown into a mild state of confusion by the disruption of that pattern. That is to say, any warm-blooded mammal who has formed some sort of an attachment for another warm-blooded mammal would become quite lonesome if that warm-blooded mammal were to be removed.
Let's stand closer to the bars. Here come some people with peanuts.
What I'm trying to say, I suppose, is that both Mac and myself have missed you a little between class visits. And by the same token, I suppose it's logical to assume you've missed seeing us.
You can say that again. Thanks, Max.
I'll put him back in his cage now. Here you go, boy. You've had plenty of exercise for one morning. There we are. See you later, Mac. Well, Miss Brooks, what do you think the coming term's going to be like?
If Mr. Conklin keeps on like he started, it should be a dilly. Did you know that he took Stretch Snodgrass, Walter Denton, and his daughter Harriet out of my room and put them each in a different English class?
Oh, yes, I know. Harriet's in Miss Enright's class now. She's got your old room right next door. Too bad about the kids. But...
Miss Enright has the room next door?
Yes, she drops in quite often to say hello to Mac.
To Mac, huh?
Yes. Always said she's been interested in frog life.
Frog life, huh?
She and Mac are crazy about each other.
Believe me, they're mated.
Miss Enright's quite fond of you, Miss Brooks. In fact, just the other day she was telling me how sorry she was that you had to work here in summer school while she was getting brown as a berry on a vacation. She paid you quite a nice compliment, too.
That I'd like to hear.
All right. She said that you were the only person she knew who could look so alive without any vestige of color in her face.
Oh, that kid has got to go. I had no idea when I was given room 102 that she was
May
going...
I come in, Mr. Boynton?
Oh, it's Miss Enright. Of course. You know Miss Brooks.
Oh, certainly. Hello, dear Miss Brooks.
Hi.
You seem to have a little more color than usual. What happened? Cut yourself?
Just a minute, Miss
And your
Enright.
hair looks simply lovely this morning. Did you make it yourself?
Everything but the bun in the back. I had that done in the hamburger stand on the corner.
I'd ask you to sit down, Miss Enright, but there aren't any chairs between these lab tables.
Oh, Miss Enright doesn't need a chair. Come sit over here by me, dear. I'll light up this Bunsen burner for you. Of course, if you were just leaving anyhow,
Oh,
I don't
no,
want to...
not just yet, Miss Brooks. Mr. Boynton, I dropped in to give you a little present.
Oh?
Something you can wear at the football game tomorrow. Here, let me take it out of the box. There.
Oh, gosh, an orange-colored turtleneck sweater.
Isn't it divine?
Looks like a hot water bottle with sleeves.
Oh, it's beautiful, and it was very nice of you to knit it for me, Miss Enright.
Oh, I didn't knit it, Mr. Boynton. This is part of a matched set I bought at Sherry's department store. I have one exactly like it for myself.
Oh, if you bought it, Miss Enright, I'm afraid I won't be able to accept it. It's against my principles to take anything I don't pay for.
Oh, please, Mr. Boynton, just consider it a premature Christmas present.
Well, in that case, thank you, Miss Enright. I'd better hang it up in the cloakroom so it doesn't get creased. Will you excuse me, Miss Brooks?
Certainly. I'll stay here and chat with Santa.
I'll just be a moment.
Well, Miss Brooks, I hear you may be our new faculty cheerleader. And I'd like to tell you I think it's a remarkable achievement.
What's so remarkable about it?
Well, the fact that you dare to indulge in such strenuous pursuits at your age. I mean, is cheerleading really quite safe for you, darling?
Don't worry about me, Miss Enright. If Rudy Valley can still lift a megaphone, I can. But I must say that sweater you gave Mr. Boynton was a very nice method of vacuuming an invitation to the game out of him.
Oh, you make it sound like a plot, darling. Don't you know that I never indulge in intrigue? Subterfuge is for those who need it. No, my dear. My hands are clean.
They should be, considering all the time you must spend licking your paws.
Are you hinting that
Oh, I'm not hinting anything, Miss Enright. I just understand why you didn't knit that sweater yourself. You would have wasted too much time playing with a ball of yarn.
Droll thing, you. Sometimes I think you're out of this world, but I know it's just wishful thinking.
Likewise, I'm sure. But you'll have to excuse me now. I've got to stop in at Mr. Conklin's office before class.
Well, I'll have to dash too, I'm afraid.
Oh, I'm sorry I kept you waiting, ladies. Oh, are you leaving?
Yes, I'd better get an early start. It's a sleeper jump to my room from here.
Well, I'm glad you dropped in, and thanks a million for that dandy sweater, Miss Enright.
Oh, you're very welcome, Mr. Boynton. Goodbye.
Bye. Don't be strange.
It's out of her hands. So you see, Mr. Conklin, Harriet, Walter, and Stretch would like to be transferred to the same English class.
But why, Miss Brooks?
Because they've all been together for several terms now, and the kids miss each other. You see, they're friends, and friendship is a very important thing to young people.
Why?
Because it is. They derive a certain... Look, Mr. Conklin, have you ever had a friend?
A good question, Miss Brooks. And much as it may surprise you, the answer is in the affirmative. When I was a rather small boy, I was quite friendly with my mother. Now then, I'd like to change the subject.
But, Mr. Conklin,
Miss Brooks,
it's a very...
I see no reason whatsoever for transferring my daughter Harriet into the same class with a dunce like Walter Denton.
But what about Stretch Snodgrass?
That's different. Now you're talking about the mind of the century.
I mean, supposing you put Walter and Stretch together.
What, and create a half-wit? Now, before you return to your class, Miss Brooks, there's another matter I'd like to broach to you. Did you read the paper this morning?
No, sir, I didn't.
I see. Then do you mind receiving some of the news in capsule form?
Why should I mind? That's how I get my salary. I mean... What news, Mr. Conklin?
Well, it seems that Jason Brill got himself elected faculty cheerleader at the Clay City High.
But I thought that was...
Yes, Miss Brooks, it was my idea, but he latched onto it. Pilfered it from me last week. Now, you know how I feel about Jason Brill, don't you?
I think so, Mr. Conklin. To you, he's a sort of an old Walter Denton.
Worse, if possible. However, he's not going to get away with this, Miss Brooks. We're going to hold an election here at Madison this afternoon, and I'm going to win it. I guess I'll rate as much newspaper space as that old billy goat any day.
Pardon me, Mr. Conklin, but who's going to vote in this election?
Why, the undergraduate body, of course.
I see. Well, then the outcome may not be as easy to foretell as you think. You see, Mr. Conklin, whereas on the one hand, the students love, admire, and respect you...
Yes?
Now, what did I do with that other hand?
I am well aware of the mercurial nature of the student body's likes and dislikes, Miss Brooks. However, if I were nominated by someone in whom they have always had faith, someone who could swing all her votes my way, I'd be assured of victory.
Someone like who?
It's whom, Miss Brooks.
You don't have to tell me whom. It's meme. But, Mr. Conklin, if I'm nominated in good faith, would it be ethical to nominate you?
This is politics, Miss Brooks. There's always room for compromise. If you agree to nominate me, for example, I might see things your way on one of your pet projects. Specifically, those transfers you were concerned about a minute ago.
You mean you'd transfer the kids back to my class?
Now we're interested, aren't we? Of course, if I did add those pupils to your class, I'd have to move you to a larger room. Say back to 148, next to the biology lab. Well, what are you thinking, Miss Brooks?
Just that when you became a principal, Madison's gain was Tammany's loss.
Then you'll do it. Fine. Now, I think it best that you keep the entire matter a secret until you actually place my name in nomination at the assembly this afternoon. That way, coming just before the voting, the impact will be the greatest. I'll have the nominating speech all ready for you by lunchtime. Let's see now. Have I overlooked anything?
Just the getaway car with the motor running.
Quiet, please. Quiet. And now we shall have a few words from your latest nominee, a woman whose opinions we all value so highly, our Miss Brooks. Now remember, my dear, read the speech I gave you in a nice, clear voice and make the finish as impressive as possible.
I will, Mr. Conklin. I may hang myself. Students of Madison High, it is indeed a rare occurrence when one candidate nominates another. It is only when a man has such stature that he towers above all competition that one is forced to do so.
Moved to do so.
Moved to do so. Here at Madison, we have such a candidate. A man whose unquestioned spirit is only equaled by his qualities of leadership. He has enthusiasm. Get up and go. And I wish I could. That is, this candidate has long guided the destiny of this glorious institution of which I am proud to be an inmate. Instructor. Therefore, may I place in nomination and urge you all to vote for the man whose kindness, consideration, and unselfishness is known to us all. Osgood Conklin. Osgood Conklin.
Osgood Conklin?
Osgood Conklin. Thank you, Harriet. Now we shall proceed to that which is the inherent right and treasured privilege of every American, the vote. In order to speed things along, I've decided that we can dispense with the antiquated written ballot. Instead, each student will simply file up to the platform and tell me who he's voting for. The first row, please.
I object!
Down, Denton.
I'm afraid I second the objection, sir. The sanctity of the secret ballot is something
Please,
that we
Mr. Boynton. Mr. Conklin has a motive in wanting to expedite matters. He's merely trying to railroad himself through. Get the voting accomplished quickly.
Seems to be something wrong, Miss Brooks. Remember, I won't keep my promise unless you keep yours.
Well, I'm trying to, Mr. Conklin. Students, listen to me, please. I move that we elect Mr. Conklin faculty cheerleader by acclamation. Now, what do you say, kids? Is it Osgood Conklin by acclamation? Motion carried. Congratulations, Mr. Conklin.
Thank you, Miss Brooks. Students, you may rest assured that this overwhelming vote of confidence is not misplaced. It may interest you to know that your new faculty cheerleader once threw a brass baton 50 feet into the air and caught it with one hand. Unfortunately, we have no such baton on the premises, or I'd be glad...
Here's one right over here by the bandstand, Mr. Conklin.
Quiet, Denton.
Hand that up here, Walter. Here you are, Mr. Conklin. A real drum major's baton.
Yes.
Go ahead, Daddy. Throw it up in the air the way you used to.
Looks like you're on, Mr. Conklin.
Oh, yeah. Well, let's see here. We twirl her around like this. Oh, I remember now. Then up she goes. Oh, that's a pretty good toss, if I say so myself. But I've lost sight of it. Where did the confounded thing disappear to?
Daddy, speak to me.
All together now, gang. A skyrocket, 2 locomotives, and a Band-Aid for Mr. Conklin.
Our Miss Brooks returns in just a moment, but first...
Dream girl, beautiful luster cream girl.
Tonight, yes, tonight, show him how much lovelier your hair can look after a Luster Cream shampoo. Luster Cream, world's finest shampoo. No other shampoo in the world gives Kay Daumit's magic blend of secret ingredients plus gentle lanolin. Not a soap, not a liquid. Luster Cream Shampoo leaves hair 3 ways lovelier. Fragrantly clean, free of loose dandruff, glistening with sheen, soft, manageable. Even in hardest water, Luster Cream lathers instantly. No special rinse needed after a Luster Cream Shampoo. So gentle, Luster Cream is wonderful even for children's hair. Tonight, yes, tonight, try Luster Cream Shampoo.
Dream girl, beautiful luster cream girl. You owe your crowning glory to a luster cream shampoo.
And now, once again, here is our Miss Brooks.
Well, I left the auditorium after a spirited rally, during which we all sang songs and cheered while Mr. Conklin rubbed his head. At the end of the school day, I ran into Mr. Boynton as he was coming out of our principal's office. And from what he told me, I knew Mr. Conklin had kept his end of the bargain.
Yes, indeed. There certainly has been a lot of switching around, Miss Brooks. Miss Enright's been moved into room 101.
That's probably so I could have my old room back. You know, 148 next to your biology lab.
My old biology lab.
Old biology lab? You mean you've got a new one?
Yep. In the switching around, I've been moved to 102 next to Miss Enright.
Oh, no.
Well, let's not waste any more time in school, Miss Brooks. After all, today's Friday. We have a date to go to the zoo.
Let's skip it, Mr. Boynton. With my luck, they're sure to put us in separate cages.
Next week, tune into another Our Miss Brooks show brought to you by Luster Cream Shampoo for soft, glamorous, caressable hair and Colgate Dental Cream to clean your breath while you clean your teeth and help stop tooth decay. Our Miss Brooks, starring Eve Arden, is produced by Larry Burns, directed by Al Lewis, with music by Wilbur Hatch.
Doctors prove you, too, may have a lovelier complexion in 14 days. Yes, 36 leading skin specialists proved in tests on 1,285 different women that a new method of cleansing with Palmolive soap using nothing but Palmolive brought new complexion beauty to 2 women out of 3. Just wash your face 3 times daily with Palmolive soap. Each time for 60 seconds, massaging Palmolive's beauty lather onto your skin. Then rinse. So start your Palmolive facials today. See what Palmolive soap can do for your complexion in just 14 days.
For mystery liberally sprinkled with laughs, listen to Mr. and Mrs. Smart, Tuesday evening over most of these same stations. And be with us again next week at the same time for another comedy episode of Our Miss Brooks. Bob Lamont speaking. This is CBS, the Columbia Broadcasting System. Luster Cream Shampoo for soft, glamorous, caressable hair and Colgate Dental Cream to clean your breath while you clean your teeth and help stop tooth decay, bring you Our Miss Brooks, starring Eve Arden. Yes, it's time once again for Eve Arden in another comedy episode of Our Miss Brooks, written by Al Lewis. Well, for most of us, it's considerably harder to get up early on winter mornings than it is during the summer. But this isn't the case with our Miss Brooks, who teaches English at Madison High School.
Maybe I'm just being perverse, but if I found it any harder to get up early in the winter than I do in the summer, I'd sleep right through the spring. That's why Mrs. Davis, my landlady, had such a time waking me last Thursday morning.
Connie, get up, Connie.
Go away, Mrs. Davis.
Come on now. You told me yourself that you wanted to get up at 6:30 sharp.
I was lying.
I can't understand what makes you so difficult to wake up.
Oh, it must be because of my dream.
Your dream?
Yes, I dreamt I was out very late last night.
Oh. You did go out with Mr. Boynton last night, didn't you?
I had dinner with the bashful one, yes.
Was it an exciting evening, Connie?
It was a rip snorter. When we got to the front door, Mr. Boynton apologized for keeping me out until the wee small hours.
What time was it, Connie?
5 minutes of 10. Of course, by the time he got finished saying goodnight, the way he says it, it was considerably later.
What time was it then?
4 minutes of 10. Well, I better take my shower and get dressed, Mrs. Davis.
All right, Connie. Mr. Boynton isn't the most romantic fellow in the world, is he?
So far, Cary Grant has nothing to worry about. Well, this coffee was very good, Mrs. Davis.
Oh, I'm glad you like it, Connie. Do you know what I put into the coffee grounds to get that flavor?
Don't tell me. I want another cup first. There we are. You want some?
No, thanks. I've been thinking about Mr. Boynton all morning.
Why, Mrs. Davis, don't tell me I've got competition.
Oh, competition? Oh, of course not, Connie. Why, I'm old enough to be both your mothers.
Oh, now, please, Mrs. Davis, you mustn't split up over us. Oh, that must be Walter Denton. I can tell because there's still some food on the breakfast table. I'll get it.
All right, Connie. I'm going out in the yard for a few minutes. I've got to try to fix that incinerator.
The incinerator? What's the matter with it?
It caught on fire the other day. I'll tell you about it when I come back.
Should be interesting. Be right there. Good morning, Walter.
Correction, Miss Brooks. It's a wonderful morning. A delicious morning. A morning dripping with ecstasy.
Well, trickle in, happy boy. What are you celebrating, Walter? Was Madison High swept out to sea by a tidal wave?
Of course not, Miss Brooks. It's me that's being carried along by a tidal wave. A tidal wave of emotion unprecedented in one of my tender years. It's as if I'd discovered a hidden wellspring in the core of my being.
You'll find a blotter in the hall closet. Now, come on into the dinette. I was just finishing a cup of coffee.
Oh, I'd be happy to join you in a bit of breakfast, Miss Brooks.
Sit down, Walter. How about a glass of milk?
A glass of milk and a few pieces of coffee cake will be fine, thanks.
I'm glad you brought your beaming face over so early today. Maybe you can loan me a pint or two of ecstasy. What's it all about?
Well, it's Harriet, Miss Brooks. I'm really in solid with her, and all because of a fortunate accident that happened yesterday afternoon.
What kind of an accident?
Well, yesterday after school, she was in the garage looking for her tennis racket, and her father's car was in the way. Now, you know how finicky old Marblehead is about the... Mr. Conklin is about his car.
I know he doesn't let anyone drive it.
Drive it? He doesn't let anybody come within 6 feet of it if he can help it. He even parks it himself in parking lots. Why, I've heard him boast that since the day he bought it, his car has been untouched by human hands.
How does he get it lubricated? And if you say by grease monkeys, I'll take away that cake.
Oh, no, he does it himself, Miss Brooks. So you can imagine how nervous Harriet got when she tried to back it up a few feet in the garage, and the wheels were turned too sharply, and bang! She put a neat dent in the fender. That's when I got the inspiration that will forever endear me to Harriet Conklin.
What did you do, smuggle her out of the country?
No, Miss Brooks. I decided to take the rap for what she'd done. Instead of obeying my normal, natural impulse, to run like a crook. I decided to face Mr. Conklin and take the blame.
But, Walter, Mr. Conklin isn't too fond of you as it is.
I'll say he isn't. He can't stand the sight of me. Yeah, but as I say, Miss Brooks, I was inspired. So I went around to the front of the house, I strode boldly up the porch steps, and faced Mr. Conklin's face to face.
From the picture, let's face it.
Sir, I said, you're not going to like this, but the fender of your car has just been dented, and it was I, Walter Denton, who did the denting.
You've been reading too much Ogden Nash. What did Mr. Conklin say to that, Walter?
He said, Denton, I admire your honesty.
That's all he said?
Not another word, not another syllable. He just extended his hand and shoved me down the steps.
I knew there was some sort of punctuation.
But as I landed in the yard below, I felt a warm glow spreading around my heart.
I question the geographical accuracy of that remark.
No, it's the truth, Miss Brooks. I saw a look in Harriet's eyes. She helped me up that seemed to say, Walter Denton, I am forever your slave. And you know something, Miss Brooks? That system would work for you, too.
But, Walter, I can't be your slave. The Board of Education has a priority.
No, I'm talking about Mr. Boynton. Now, if you want to get in solid with him, all you've got to do is just what I did.
What, let Mr. Conklin shove me down the steps?
No, Miss Brooks. Take the rap for some jam that Mr. Boynton gets into.
But Mr. Boynton doesn't get into any jams. How could I possibly take any raps for him?
Maybe a jam could be arranged for Mr. Boynton.
Mrs. Davis.
I couldn't help but hear your conversation, Connie.
You couldn't?
No, I had my ear to the keyhole. Walter, I want you to know that I think you've got a wonderful idea there.
Oh, thanks, Mrs. Davis. Now, it shouldn't be too tough to figure out a way to get Mr. Boynton into some kind of trouble at school.
Then you could take the blame for him, and he'd be so grateful. He wouldn't know what to do for you first.
But I bet you could tell him.
But that would be framing a perfectly innocent man.
But it's for his own good, Connie. He's just too shy to realize that you two were meant for each other. Now, it's quite early yet, so before you start out for school, let's all sit quietly and try to figure out the best possible scheme.
Swell. We'll all concentrate.
I've got it.
What is it?
I'll borrow Mr. Boynton's cigarette lighter and leave it in the principal's office as evidence.
His cigarette lighter? What good would that do?
Oh, I forgot to tell you. First, I'd set fire to Mr. Conklin.
Our Miss Brooks, starring Eve Arden, will continue in just a moment, but first here is Vern Smith. Now, dental science reveals a startling discovery in the fight against tooth decay. Proof that always using Colgate dental cream right after eating helps stop tooth decay before it starts.
Continuous research, hundreds of case histories, makes this the most important news in dental history.
Eminent dental authorities supervised hundreds of college men and women for over a year. One group always brushed their teeth with Colgates right after eating. The other followed their usual dental care.
And here are the amazing results. The group using Colgate dental cream as directed showed a startling reduction in average number of cavities, far less tooth decay. The other group developed new cavities at a much higher rate. No other dentifrice offers proof of these results.
And Colgate's contains all the necessary ingredients, including an exclusive patented ingredient for effective daily dental care. No risk of irritation to tissues and gums.
And no change in flavor, foam, or cleansing action. As always, Colgate's cleans your breath while it cleans your teeth.
The Colgate's now at your dealers is the same formula used in the tests. Always use Colgate dental cream right after eating to help prevent new cavities, help stop tooth decay before it starts.
Well, we arrived at school in plenty of time for me to try out the Walter Denton plan for obtaining the gratitude of the object of one's affections. Or as Walter so romantically put it, get him in a jam, take the rap, and you got him in your pocket. Anyway, I headed directly for Mr. Boynton's biology lab. And knowing that Mr. Conklin's disposition wouldn't be improved any by the dent in his fender, I glided very carefully past his office, but I guess I wasn't careful enough.
Miss Brooks.
Oops. Morning, Mr. Conklin. On our toes this morning, aren't we?
Yes, we are. Especially you.
It's just that I didn't want to disturb you, sir.
Very considerate of you. Now, if you don't mind, Miss Brooks, you can put your shoes on and step into my office. There we are. Have a seat.
Thank you, sir.
As you know, Miss Brooks, I have high blood pressure.
Yes, sir, I know. Sometimes when you get excited, your face gets so red it looks like a little...
Never mind. Never mind the little word pictures, Miss Brooks. I know how I look when I get excited. What I wanted to tell you is that I saw you stepping out of Walter Denton's car this morning.
Oh?
I see you stepping out of Denton's car almost every morning when you come to school, and it rather fascinates me.
What does?
Well, you see, sometimes I park my car right in front of school, sometimes a few yards to the right of it, and sometimes halfway down the block. But do you know something, Miss Brooks? No matter where I park it, Denton always manages to pull up alongside of it so that when you get out of his car, you have to slide your body the entire length of my car, making nick after nick in the paint job.
I'm terribly sorry, Mr. Conklin. I had no idea I was so abrasive.
Well, it's not deliberate, I'm sure. But every third Sunday when I simonize my car, I find a little nick here, a little nick there, here a scratch, there a scrape.
Everywhere a scrape. I mean, I can understand your being annoyed, Mr. Conklin, but...
I'm glad. You see, Miss Brooks, to me a man's car is a most personal possession. As personal, you might say, as his toothbrush.
Well, in the future, Mr. Conklin, you can rest assured that I'll make every effort not to bump into your car.
Thanks, Miss Brooks. Oh, before you go, there's one more thing.
Yes?
Make a little effort to avoid bumping into Mr. Boynton so often, too. You know how I stand on fraternization between faculty members.
Mr. Boynton? And me? Why, just put it out of your mind, Mr. Conklin. That's a thing of the past.
Oh, really?
Of course. Why, if I were the only woman in the world and Mr. Boynton was the last man on earth...
Yes, Miss Brooks?
I'd like to leave a call for Tuesday. So you see, Mr. Boynton, although I don't like to lecture, these little visits have just got to stop. That's all there is to it.
But why, Miss Brooks? I like your dropping into my lab like this.
Well, that's the end of that lecture. Any questions? Honestly, I don't see why Mr. Conklin's so strict about teachers passing the time of day once in a while. What harm does it do?
Well, it does slow up our work some, I suppose. Although I haven't anything urgent to do at the moment. In fact, I was just doodling on this scratch pad. You see, it's a sketch of one of my white mice.
Say, that's very cute. How is everything with you, Mr. Boynton?
Fine, Miss Brooks.
No trouble on the horizon at all? That is, everything sailing along smoothly for you?
Smooth as silk.
Oh. Let me have that mouse you just drew. And that pencil. Thanks. Now, when I put this little mustache on him, who does it remind you of?
Well, gee, I don't know.
Here, I'll give you a hint. There.
Well, when you put his name on it, it does look quite a bit like Mr. Conklin. Say, that reminds me. I've got some reports to turn into him this morning.
Oh, I'll do it for you. I'm going right by his office.
Are you sure it's no trouble?
Trouble? It's my opportunity. I mean, I'll be glad to leave these reports for you. See you later, Mr. Boynton.
All right, Miss Brooks, and thanks. Now I better tear up that drawing with Osgood Conklin's name on it, or he might... Well, now, that's funny. It disappeared. Oh, Miss Brooks, just a minute.
What is it?
Did you happen to pick up that drawing Miss Brooks, what's that you're stuffing in the envelope with my reports?
Please, Mr. Boynton, I never stuff.
Let's see that a minute.
But, Mr. Boynton, if you don't get reports in promptly to Mr. Conklin, he gets furious.
Miss Brooks, look at this picture.
Eek, a mouse.
Yes, and with a mustache. Now, I wish you'd tell me what he's doing in there with my reports.
Maybe there's some cheese in the envelope.
This is no laughing matter, Miss Brooks. I could have gotten into a fine jam with Mr. Conklin.
Yes, it could have been a beauty. But there's no harm done, Mr. Boynton. I would have discovered it before I got to Mr. Conklin's office, and well, you don't think I intentionally... Mr. Boynton, how dare you accuse me of what I just did?
here, Miss Brooks. I just saw Mr. Boynton at the other end of the cafeteria.
Well, if you must know, Harriet, I'm staying away from Mr. Boynton because of your father.
Oh, Daddy won't be up to the cafeteria today. He's been terribly upset since I dented his fender yesterday. Walter Denton took the blame for it, though. He's just an angel, Miss Brooks.
Yes, I heard he flew down the steps beautifully.
But ever since it happened, Daddy's been on a rampage. He's positive he's got an ulcer.
Really? Can he afford one? I'm sorry to hear it.
Daddy called the cafeteria a little while ago and had them prepare a special lunch for him to eat in his office. Plain broth and a whole boiled chicken. Walter's bringing the tray over from the steam table now. I promised Daddy I'd bring it right down to his office.
Well, here we are, Harriet. This ought to stop the old lion from growling for his victuals. Oh, hiya, Miss Brooks.
Hello, Walter.
Thanks, Walter. I'll rush it right down to him.
Oh, just a minute, Harriet. I was just thinking. I've got to go back to my room for a minute. Why don't you stay here and eat your own lunch and let me take the tray for you?
Well, that's very nice of you, Miss Brooks.
Oh, it's nothing at all, Harriet. Here, give me the tray, Walter.
Are you sure you'll drop it right in Daddy's office?
Nothing would give me greater pleasure. Walter, will you walk out of the cafeteria with me for a moment?
Oh, sure, Miss Brooks. Excuse me, Harriet.
Certainly, Walter, dear.
See how nice she is to me? How are you doing, Miss Brooks? Think of any way to get Mr. Boynton into a jam?
I think I've got an idea, Walter, but you've got to help me.
Yeah?
Now, while he's out, I want you to take this tray into Mr. Boynton's laboratory. Just put a little note on it saying compliments of the cafeteria. And whatever you do, don't mention this to Harriet.
Yeah, but, Miss Brooks, this lunch belongs to Mr.
Quiet, Walter. His office is just a few doors down the hall. You started me on this thing. Now, the least you can do is cooperate.
Well, okay, Miss Brooks. I'll put it in the lab right away. But I sure hope you know what you're doing.
I sure hope you get your hope.
Well, what is it?
May I see you for a moment, Mr. Conklin?
Oh, come in.
There's something I'd like to tell you, sir.
Very well, but be brief.
Oh, I will. I know this is your feeding time. Lunchtime.
It is past my lunchtime. The tray I ordered should have been here a half an hour ago.
Well, that's what I came in to talk to you about. It might be some sort of a prank, and although I'm not the one to go in for informing, Mr.
Prank?
Conklin...
Who took my lunch?
I don't know, I'm sure. But I thought if you wanted me to, I could inspect some of the laboratories, classrooms, and see who the guilty party might be.
A splendid suggestion, Miss Brooks. Only instead of you inspecting the classrooms, I'll do it myself.
Yourself? Oh, but you're not a well man, Mr. Conklin. You can't leave this office now.
Step aside, Miss Brooks. I'm going to locate my lunch, or else.
I'm glad you got to class before any of the others, Walter. I'm in the spot.
Yeah, but Miss Brooks...
When I had you put that lunch tray in Mr. Boynton's lab, I wanted him to see it before I transferred it to my room and told Mr. Conklin that somebody had played a prank on me.
Yeah, I know, Miss Brooks,
But Mr. Conklin insisted on making the rounds himself, and now... Walter, isn't that the lunch tray on my desk?
Yeah, that's what I've been trying to explain, Miss Brooks. Mr. Boynton already had lunch, so when he found it in the lab, he brought it down here to your room. He said he wanted to treat you.
Oh, fine. Well, there's no time for any more schemes now. I'd better sneak his lunch into Mr. Conklin's office while he's out looking.
Oh, there's something else I've got to explain, Miss Brooks. Although Mr. Boynton had his lunch and I knew you'd had yours, I didn't have mine. So rather than take a chance of getting caught in the hall with it, I ate it.
Let's see it. Oh, there's nothing left but a skeleton. I've got to get rid of this tray immediately. Quick, Walter, open the window. I'll take these dishes and lower them out.
Just a moment, Miss Brooks. What's that you're holding in your hand?
For all practical purposes, my death warrant.
You see, Mr. Conklin?
Silence!
I...
Put it down on your desk, please. Thank you. So you wanted to hunt through the classrooms yourself, eh? A very clever red herring, Miss Brooks, but it just didn't work. I'll deal with you later, of course. But for now, I'll just take my lunch and... My lunch? What happened to it? This chicken is nothing but skin and bones.
He's been working very hard lately. Please, Mr. Conklin, I'll explain it all later. I'll think of something. Just go to your office and relax. Why, I'll bring you a tray that'll make you feel like $1 million.
There's only one thing I want you to bring me on a tray, Miss Brooks, and that's your head.
Oh, I'm so certainly glad school's over, Mr. Boynton. I thought this day would never end.
Well, me too. Mr. Conklin was in a pretty bad mood, wasn't he?
I can't understand it. He's got such a fine teaching staff. You'd think he'd be happy.
Well, here's my car, Miss Brooks. If you haven't made any other plans, well, that is, I thought maybe if you didn't have a ride with some other, well, would you like me to?
I'm already in, Mr. Boynton.
Oh, fine. I'll get in. Now, we'll just... Uh-oh. Well, I seem to be jammed in between two cars here.
Oh, it is pretty tight. Bumper to bumper.
Yeah. I'll just have to start my motor and push the car in front of me a bit. Why do people persist in leaving their cars in gear?
You've got enough room now, Mr. Boynton. You can stop pushing the car in front of you.
I have stopped. That car's rolling by itself. Miss Brooks, what'll I do?
Well, there's nothing you can do. Maybe it'll stop by itself. Well, that's the first time I've been right today.
Come on. Oh, look at that fender, crumpled like an accordion. Well, let's see who the car belongs to. Miss Brooks, can you see the certificate on the steering wheel?
Quite clearly, Mr. Boynton. It says, and I quote, Osgood Conklin.
Osgood Conklin? Well, I guess I'll have to face the music. You wait right here, Miss Brooks. I'm going in and report this to Mr. Conklin.
Well, that's a fine insurance company you're with, Gibbons.
I'm sorry, Mr. Conklin, but our inspector looked at the fender this morning, and he says the dent can be hammered out for about $40.
But I don't want it hammered out. I want a new fender. What am I paying insurance premiums for?
Sorry, Mr. Conklin, a new fender would cost over $150, and the dent you have doesn't justify it. Since your policy is a $50 deductible, you'll have to stand the expense yourself. Bye.
But Mr. Gibbons,
Goodbye.
Mr. Gibbons, he hung up on me. Well, of all the colossal nerve.
Oh, pardon me, sir.
What do you want, Boynton?
I wish to report an accident, sir, an automobile accident.
Automobile accident? Anybody hurt?
Not yet. You see, sir, it was your car.
My car?
Yes, sir. You had me locked in at the curb, and I had to give it a little push, and the brake wasn't on, and, well, it didn't stop till it hit a tree.
A tree? What happened to it?
Oh, nothing happened to the tree, Mr. Conklin. But your fender, it's just...
Smashed up pretty good, Boynton?
Mangled.
Really wrecked, eh? Oh, Boynton, that's wonderful.
Wonderful. You mean you're happy about it?
Well, of course. I'll show that insurance company they... Oh, wait a minute. That fender couldn't be hammered out, could it?
Oh, definitely not.
Attaboy, Boynton! Oh, I won't forget this, my boy. You've done me a real turn. Don't you see? I had a little dent in the fender, but the insurance company wouldn't replace it. But now they'll have to. Do you hear me? They'll have to.
Wait! Mr. Conklin, you're barking at the wrong tree. I mean, I alone am responsible for what just happened to your car.
You? But Mr. Boynton said
Never mind what Mr. Boynton said.
Now, see here, Miss Brooks, there's no necessity for you to go...
Ixnay, Mr. Boynton, I'll handle this. No, Mr. Conklin, I know you're angry at me as it is, but I cannot let an innocent person try to shield me. You can go now, Mr. Boynton. Leave here a free man.
But, Miss Brooks...
You can thank me some other time. Tonight, say.
But I don't understand. Why are you trying to take credit for this, Boynton?
Credit?
Credit? Look, Mr. Conklin, I don't understand a lot of things that have happened here today, so if you'll excuse me, I'll take Miss Brooks' suggestion and leave here a free man.
But, Mr. Boynton, I don't...
Now, what's the matter with him? What difference does it make who did what as long as I'm pleased? Miss Brooks, you have no idea what you've just done for me.
You're so right. And you, Mr. Conklin, have no idea what I have just done to me.
But I told you I'm not angry. Why are you still up a tree?
If an English teacher may correct a principal, Mr. Conklin, it isn't a tree that I'm up. What I'm up and without a paddle is a creek.
Eve Arden as our Miss Brooks returns in just a moment, but first...
Dream girl, beautiful luster cream girl.
Tonight, yes, tonight, show him how much lovelier your hair can look after a Luster Cream shampoo. Luster Cream, world's finest shampoo. No other shampoo in the world gives Kay Daumit's magic blend of secret ingredients plus gentle lanolin. Not a soap, not a liquid. Luster Cream shampoo leaves hair 3 ways lovelier. Fragrantly clean, free of loose dandruff, glistening with sheen, soft, manageable. Even in hardest water, Luster Cream lathers instantly. No special rinse needed after a Luster Cream shampoo. So gentle, Luster Cream is wonderful even for children's hair. Tonight, yes, tonight, try Luster Cream shampoo.
Dream girl, beautiful luster cream girl. You owe your crowning glory to a luster cream shampoo.
And now, once again, here is our Miss Brooks.
Well, I corralled Mr. Boynton before he got into his car again and explained that I thought he was in trouble and was merely coming to his rescue.
Well, I'm afraid I don't approve of such heroics, Miss Brooks. You see, I've always liked to stand on my own 2 feet. It's a trait I inherited from my father.
Really?
Yes, Miss Brooks. I've gotten where I am today without the help of any woman. I'm rather proud of that, and so is my father.
Mr. Boynton, could I have his address?
His address? What for, Miss Brooks?
I want to send your father a card on Mother's Day.
Next week, tune into another Our Miss Brooks show brought to you by Luster Cream Shampoo for soft, glamorous, caressable hair and Colgate Dental Cream to clean your breath while you clean your teeth and help stop tooth decay.
Our Miss Brooks, starring Eve Arden, is produced by Larry Burns, directed by Al Lewis, with music by Wilbur Hatch.
Doctors prove you too may have a lovelier complexion in 14 days. Yes, 36 leading skin specialists proved in tests on 1,285 different women that a new method of cleansing with Palmolive soap using nothing but Palmolive brought new complexion beauty to 2 women out of 3. Just wash your face 3 times daily with Palmolive soap. Each time for 60 seconds, massaging Palmolive's beauty lather onto your skin, then rinse. So start your Palmolive facials today. See what Palmolive soap can do for your complexion in just 14 days.
The people in war-torn countries will be increasingly hungry, cold, and ill with the coming of winter. You can help them by sending care packages. Care packages include vital food, clothing, blankets. Care guarantees delivery. Just send $10 to Care, New York.
For mystery liberally sprinkled with laughs, listen to Mr. and Mrs. North, Tuesday evening over most of these same stations. And be with us again next week at the same time for another comedy episode of Our Miss Brooks. Bob Lamont speaking. This is CBS, the Columbia Broadcasting System.